Good afternoon. U.S. National Grid Implementation Work Group meeting of April 29th, 2026. The meeting agenda as published, there it is. The administrative meeting and updates will run from 1 to 1:30, and the administrative meeting sequence is opening committee reports, USNGI updates, old business, new business, comments, announcements, and other business. Opening. Attendance that's collected automatically off of Zoom. The recorder's on. At this point in the meeting, as the chair, I'm gaveling it open. You've received the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? If not, I move that well, I should put it this way. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as published? Do
I'll
I have a,
make
So
the
moved.
motion.
Second.
okay, okay, thank you very much. I believe we had a,
It was Cole and then Randy.
yep, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there anyone opposed? Hearing no one, the agenda as published is accepted. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you've come back after that break, I really appreciate you being here. Again, my apologies. Committee reports. Board of Directors report. I've got that. The last meeting of the Board of Directors was on March 31st, 2026. We're making good progress on priorities. The secretary is going to report out. That's Randy, and he would be telling us that the next board of directors meeting is on Tuesday, June 9th, and the implementation work group meeting is on July 22nd. So pencil it in. That's the next time we're going to get together. Uh, Georgiana, if you've checked the account, I checked the account this morning. There's $492.72 in it. There's a $237.50 donation out of 250. And why I mention that is we pay 5% to Share Geo for extending their nonprofit deferment to us. We got no debts, no outstanding bills, and the balance covers current operations with the emphasis on the word current for the next 12 months. But I do want to show you that there's real money going in and going out of this organization. And so, as of the last time this particular group met, the implementation work group meeting, in the account there was $804.19. We had expenses totaling $692.48, and that covered hosting, Zoom, and some promo items for support of an event that's going to go on in Duluth. So I wrote the check this morning for 250 to cover those promo items. If we hadn't had money coming in, we would have been down to $111.71. So previous donation took us to $491.71. Got 1 cent of interest and inbound donation of $237.50 gives us with a projected ending balance of $792.22. No joke, sink or float. Donation, if you can and will, would be greatly appreciated. We are not holding parties or doing anything like that. Every dime that you send in fact, goes for trying to support moving this effort forward, which we'll be talking about today. That takes us down to USNG updates. Here they are. Um, Update number one, priorities for 2026. Here's what we look like at the end of 2025. We've seen this slide repeatedly, but here's just kind of the compendium of where things were and how they were set up. Anything that's green on this particular slide for 2025 was considered completed and went away. And so now that you roll it forward, here's where we look on trying to knock down the 2026 priorities. And those items um, basically were the carry forward from last year. The decision was made not to add anything to the priorities from 2025 to concentrate in 2026 on cleaning off anything that was left. And so, as we'll see in a bit, the rework on the USNG Center has come a long way. We consider phase one finished. We were supposed to have it done in February, but I'll talk about it in a bit. We ran into some difficulties. Anyway, also work has begun on doing the backside of the website, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. And anything that's in pink is in the holding pattern until we can get down to it. Update number two, outreach. Here's what our websites look like. On the left-hand side, so this is for the U.S. National Grid Institute. As you can see there, where we're making really good progress on trying to move through with this stuff, and where we are right now is, as you can see, the Institute total views last year about 3,500 and about 1,500 unique visitors. Quickly coming up to 1/3 on that already. 1/3 of the year, way through the year, we've already eclipsed 2023 in the number of views, and we've already eclipsed 2024 in the number of unique visitors. So making some good progress there. If we go over to the store, it's even more profound. Last year at the store, we had at the end of the year 4,200 and some folks come taking a look. Unique visitors about 1,900. At only 1/3 through the year, we're well ahead of pace on of easily crossing 5,000 or higher, maybe potentially up around 6,000 on the number of views and the unique visitors. As I said, the USNG Center just came online. I don't have any stats for it, but other than what I can remember looking at Google Analytics, we had about 1,000 views per month on the old center, not very much, and about 100 folks uniquely would come by a month. Well, here's where we are in 10 days. The plan of trying to have kind of this triangular effort seems like it's paying off in terms of the number of individuals that we've are going to be able to reach through this 24/7, 365 capability. Last time we met, we had 217 followers over at LinkedIn. As of today, we've got 232. So my math's right. That only brought us up 15. As you can see, I'm beating the drum for your help on trying to promote the U.S. National Grid Institute on LinkedIn. Our goal is to try to get to 500. It's the easiest promotional thing each of you can do. It takes very little effort to either like, applaud, whatever, a post that gets put up. Mike Sovereign works his fingers to the bone, does it as a volunteer thing to try to get quality posts put up. And we see some good traction on some of them, but I think we can do a lot better than we have. So just asking for you to like, comment, or repost on LinkedIn, please. Takes us down to where we are in conferences over the conference outreach function. Over the last quarter, we did not do any presentations that I'm aware of. There are 5 that were done previously, or I should say in the previous quarter. And as it sits right now, the stuff we have on tap is we are set up to go up to the National Outdoor Recreation Conference in Duluth, Minnesota. We'll be promoting emergency location markers based on U.S. National Grid at a booth there. And then, as you can see here in the fall, we've received a personal outreach invite to present at the Indiana Emergency Managers Conference down in Noblesville. What do I want to say? They validated that they wanted us to come down, and I'll be doing a 50-minute long presentation, 10 minutes for questions, and Randy's going to show me why I'm going to be blabbing too long if I'm going 50 minutes. So later on with his presentation, how to do USNG in 15. So those are the 2 that are on deck for right now. And so here's
I have August. We have the TUGIS conference that I'll be doing a presentation.
Hello, Jeff.
Right.
Okay, cool. That's great. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Cole. We'll put that on the list as well. Thank you.
Offer accepted.
Yeah, I think it's August 5th, 6th.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, got it. Hey, Bernard, please try to turn your please click your mute off if you can. Thank you. And then so this is just a reminder. We've gotten a lot of good input from the folks
That's
down in
great. Okay, I was hoping, I thought.
We've gotten a lot of good input from folks down in Florida. If you know of a conference that's going to happen in the next year, please let us know about it. Because what I'm attempting to do is to build a calendar so that we can anticipate 3 to 6 months out when we ought to be looking for an abstract from some of these events. And so, again, if you know a particular conference is receptive to people putting in abstracts and adding to their conference itinerary, by all means, please let me know about that conference. And as I indicated before, I'll be building a master calendar electronically online where we'll be able to track this and try to do a more aggressive outreach capability. And so that covers the GIS, emergency services sector, and trail user communities. Those are the kinds of conferences that we're currently interested in. And if you're aware of any of them, please send a note to chair@usngi.org. Update number 3, the USNG Center. Phase 1 is now available for review. I know we've been yapping about this for years, but we finally gotten it to the point where it is functional and works. The poor review committee went in to take a look at it and ran into a problem with an effort to hijack them off to some other place that's going to not be nice to them. So that's one of the unfortunate things that happens when you rely on people in a country overseas to do the initial build on your website, and we didn't pick up on it because we failed to appropriately test from outside browsers, and we thought everything was fine from inside the firewall. But we've gone through a long list of steps that were taken to clean it up, and we since we were able to get the malware off of that website, and I don't mean to scare you because we've gone through some very, very extensive efforts to make sure that website is clean. And then we've done some additional, after it was validated as being good, we've done some additional things to make sure, such as monitoring software that we put in place in case something should sneak by. We've got a better idea of something that might be up. So just so you're aware of it, we consider it up and running effective April 20th. There's a review board out there that's supposed to help us out. I'll talk about that like right now. Here they are, the 9 individuals that in theory are supposed to be helping us wander through the website, make sure that the content is as good as it can be for the current time. And the reason I indicated earlier phase 1 on this is because of the issue that this is going to be an ongoing developmental effort to try to put the best quality products available on that website and then make them available for others to, if you will, steal, download, and be able to do local presentations. So that's the concept that we're after there. I'm going to also be doing some house cleaning. And what I mean by that is I've been going through 20 years of USNG files and appropriately either sorting or throwing them in the trash can, whatever might be the case. Why is that important in this discussion? Is because this is the impetus that is helping build the back website, which will be available to the board of directors and select individuals. For instance, in my backlog, I've got approaching 70 some presentations. And obviously, we don't want to have that many presentations on the USNG Center because you just, in many cases, are repeating the same stuff over. But in the house cleaning, I've been finding some interesting things. Like just the other day, I found Al Stud's very, very good presentations on U.S. National Grid that he did for fire engineering, and we'll be able to now put that information up on the USNG Center. So I anticipate I got about a month more work to get that done. But once we got that done, or once I have that completed, you should see a lot more quality stuff going up on the center. Um, that takes us down to here we are, what I sent out this morning. So just the idea that unfortunately, no matter what we seem to do, um, there is, because of all of the hacking and all of the misrouting on emails and all of that stuff, no matter how hard we're working to try to stay ahead of it, there's always some other thing that seems to come along. And sure enough, I went in and checked our settings, and our settings are in fact good to make our emails work. But now the state of Wisconsin has decided, because we are using an alias system to send out our emails, they're no longer going to allow anything to come into the state of Wisconsin. So I mean, it's a constant battle, and I just need everybody to understand that's kind of in the background. And as the joke goes, we're just buying new underwear, and what I mean by that, we're spending a lot of time on something that nobody else sees on the front side. So anyway, down to number 4, the Esri Grid Overlay Widget. Folks were talking about it earlier today in the discussion. Um, we've got a problem with Esri deprecating a piece of software that was essential, if you will, in trying to produce high quality USNG maps. And much to his credit, USNGI Director Cole Brown personally buttonholed Jack Dangerman and Richard Cook at the Esri user conference in Washington, D.C., and said, hey, what's the deal? And basically, through a string of pass down, that project ended up, as of the last email I got, as of February 25th, the project is being, quote, discussed, unquote. Stuart Ruckert, Rob Elkins, and oddly enough, if you look at the letter on the right hand side, who that letter went to out of the institute was one of the very individuals that's now looped into the discussion in terms of this problem is out there and needs to be fixed. So we've given them 2.5 months to ponder this, and now it's time for us to do a formal follow-up with them to see, hey, we talked to you about this. You said you were going to work on it and try to fix it for us. What's going on? Where is that? So if you're not familiar with it, with inside the firewalls of corporate America, one of the efficiency standards that gets promoted is throw out anything that comes at you for 2 times. And if it shows up for a 3rd time, then it's important enough that you need to respond to it. So we're just going to have to see if, their efficiency experts at Esri have pounded that into their head, and we're going to go find out. Update number 5. Why are we here reminders? Here's what I got for you. If you hadn't seen it, a pretty interesting post about what went on down in Oklahoma. This poor city of Duncan, they converted their addressing system, and then when people would call up in an emergency, the call center would ask them to use their old address so people could be found. So then they decided to go back to their new system. Okay, so that's the gist of it. You can find the details on over in our LinkedIn. Then we've got a soul up in the state of Maine and asking this question. Currently, our 911 address attribute data fields only has fields for latitude long in decimal degrees. I'm sure you're aware of the various problems in communicating with latitude, longitude coordinates. Well, we're remiss, or I should say, I'm remiss. I got buttonholed by the GIS lead for Dane County down in Wisconsin, and he's very interested in trying to run this down. So we're pending a discussion with himself, me, and Bob Bisquez to see what we can do about figuring out a technical document that we can distribute to try to resolve this issue, because this has been a thorn in our side from the beginning. We know it's there, but we've had to stamp out other fires beforehand. So we're going to get to it. Then why is my vehicle location not working in the Ford app? Well, it might be nice if the vehicle actually knew where you were when you might have an emergency. So, not to ping on Ford, because there's a lot of, different elements in this particular one, but what I'm trying to show you is the variety of ways in which we think, because of technology, that we've got this all figured out and everything works perfectly. And here's another one. I don't know if you've been following the thing in the Wall Street Journal about Congress is very upset with AT&T because this FirstNet system is not as effective as they thought it was going to be, and there's a lot of other discussion to it. And I'll stop yapping in a second, but what does this all lead to? The reminder of why are we here? Somebody forgot this thing. It's because people live in Silicon Valley, or they live in good old Washington, D.C., New York, Virginia, whatever, where everything fancy IT works great. But then they get out in the other 90% of the country, and lo and behold, I sat in on half a dozen of those uh, uh, this particular effort, the FirstNet uh, congressional hearings, and there was I believe it was the head of either the Kansas or the Nebraska Highway Patrol that just ripped them a new one about, in bill spending $7 billion a year on this system that is marginal in its delivery capability. And he told them right from the very beginning, you're not listening to the first responders, because it was a bunch of AT&T and other IT tech people sit in a room planning on how things were going to work. Anyway, just keep that thought. U.S. National Grid, in our heart of hearts, is keep it simple, stupid. There we go. Anybody want to add to that? Because I know we're running long, and I apologize. Okay, on to old business then. Esri email, it's going to get finished up this week. And then we've got 4 other things there that are kind of small side projects. Get to them when I can get to them. I had to stay head down in getting the center up, and now that it is, we're in much better shape. Last time we were together, we talked about the issue of starting up a couple of Tiger teams. Mike Sovereign, I know he's got it in the back of his head. He's thinking about trying to get a meeting going with Jeff, or Jules, rather, I'm sorry, Bernard and Rich, about maybe how they can collaborate on putting together some promotional stuff, outreach. And then hopefully, now that the center's up and going, as we begin working with what's there, Randy Knippel had agreed to take the lead on trying to serve as the point of collaboration for anybody that's interested in helping on trying how to standardize the materials that are there and then deliver them in a flow that makes sense for training. Okay, who or what did I miss? I know I've been talking like I'm a fire hose here. Going once, going twice, gone. New business. Next IWG meeting presentation is going to be the commercial use of U.S. National Grid. Bernard is going to help us out with that one. And agenda items, I'm thinking maybe we do a quick walkthrough of the USNG Center. And by then, I think enough people have poked around in it to figure out, to give us maybe some feedback as to what could be done better and how to do it better. That meeting will be Wednesday, July 22nd. Are there any other ideas out there about stuff we should address for the next IWG meeting? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, comments, announcements, other business. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the community discussion. Okay, I'm sorry I did that. Anything else out there? Takes on a community discussion, USNG in 15 minutes or less. Randy, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Okay.
Sorry.
Just this doesn't count as my 15 minutes, but just a little background. The conversation that we've had is you've heard of the concept of an elevator pitch, and how do you boil down what you want to say to be as concise as possible, and yet provide the essence of the message. So I'm calling this a quick introduction to the U.S. National Grid. I told Steve that I could just pull up one that I did previously at Minnesota GIS conference. And I looked at that, and it just wasn't that simple, because now that was for a GIS audience. And so I was really focused on the technical side of things. And so I whipped this up today by pulling slides from other presentations that I've given. And my thought would be that this would be for a general audience, not just GIS professionals. It could be emergency services folks as well. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run through this. Somebody could time me and see if I can do this in 15 minutes, even though I swore, according to Steve, that I could. We'll have to see. Okay. So what do you do in a worst case scenario like this? And you've been tasked with going out into this area, responding to this event, and either doing a search and rescue operation or a cleanup operation, or something like that. And there are no visual cues. There's no way. How do you describe areas other than just one massive debris field? And this may go on for miles. And so how do you make sense out of this? And if you're responsible for a team, a search and rescue team, how do you deploy those resources in some kind of a logical fashion? And how do you know what areas have been covered and still need to be covered, and what kind of information they want to record when they're in the field, and how do they communicate from the field back to a command center about what they're doing? Well, if you can overlay some kind of a grid on top of this, now you've got ways of breaking it up into arbitrary areas that have a fixed location and a known location. And so if we have grid lines like the 8012, 8013, and then vertically 0115, 0116, you can see that there's a logical order to this, and a numbering system, so that we could name the square in the middle there by its lower left corner, 8012, 0115. And the one next door would be 8013. 0115. And so now we start to make sense out of that. And then if we can couple that with maps that show all of the key resources, vulnerable population, and critical infrastructure within our area, now we can navigate to locations on the ground using GPS on our smart devices to be able to get to those locations, to be able to know which squares we're in, so that we can then relay that back to a command center, and so on. And so it's really about teaching people to use maps, and maps should have grid lines on them. And then we look at the numbers in the margins that name each of those grid lines, and we simply instruct people to read, write, then up, and based on that, on the lower left corner of one of those grid squares that are formed by the lines, we can name that, in this case, 7556. So we read right to 75 up to 56, and now we're at the lower left corner of a grid square that's bounded by those grid lines. And then we really want to have some kind of a system that is that fits within a national context and beyond. And that means that we're able to create name grids and talk about these grids in a much larger context, which makes it all interoperable across jurisdictions, and means that when we bring in resources from outside, we'll be speaking the same language when we're describing these locations. And this is the U.S. National Grid. The U.S. National Grid is a national standard, has been a national standard since 2001. It was adopted by several federal agencies. FEMA and DHS are the emergency management side of the federal government. NGA and USGS are the mapping side of the federal government. Both sides have adopted this. It's also been adopted by several states. I list some there. There are others. This is, in fact, the U.S. National Grid is the military grid referencing system, which has been around since World War II. It's taught to all military recruits in basic training. They have an interoperable way of describing locations, and it can be taught very easily and taught just in time to first responders. But it also means that the National Guard and all NATO forces speak the same language of location. The military, all we've done with the military grid referencing system is say that we're adopting that as the national grid for the United States. So it's nothing new. It's been around since World War II. It served the purposes in the military very well. And of course, we can see lots of parallels between military operations and emergency management operations. And it's all based on UTM coordinates. Universal Transverse Mercator Coordinate System was developed in the 1940s. It provides a uniform coordinate system for the entire Earth. It's also been adopted by the National Search and Rescue Committee. We can see right here in their Land Search and Rescue Addendum, it is the primary location referencing system for all land search and rescue operations. If we look at that a little bit closer, here we're showing the foundation of the U.S. National Grid for the entire U.S. And if you zoom in, you see these alphabetic or these squares that are labeled with alphabetic names, and these represent the largest component of the grid system. And generally, we're working at a scale that is much more local than what we're looking at here. And so that allows us to start to create some efficiencies. So if we break down the U.S. National Grid coordinate format, this is the full designation, full 15 characters describing a location to 1 meter. And then there's the corresponding UTM coordinates for that. And we can start to see the similarities. The numeric portion of U.S. National Grid is the part of the UTM coordinates from the 10,000th place down. And so we have the same number of digits in easting and northing, or X and Y. The first part is called a grid zone, and that corresponds to UTM zone 15. The next part is the 100,000 meter square, and that's how we're dropping off the 400,000 and the 4,900,000 in the UTM coordinates. And now we're just looking at the numeric portion, which is an easting or an X, and a northing, which is Y or up. And those numeric portion will always be in meters, between 0 and 99,999. And so again, if we look at the full U.S. National Grid designation, it's 15 characters. It can be maybe a little overwhelming, but we can start to see some efficiencies very quickly, because we can drop digits starting on the right to start to represent varying degrees of precision. So if we're only using 4 digits in X and Y, we're describing a location to a precision of 10 meters. 6 digits, it's 100 meters. 4 digits would be 1,000 meters. And based on the different requirements of the operation, we can choose which number of digits are necessary to describe a location. So for example, it may be just fine to use 4 digits to describe the location of a football field, because the helicopter is going to see the football field once they get within that vicinity, or anybody on the ground is going to find it similarly. Then we can also do local truncation. So if we remove the 15 Tango Victor Kilo from the left, we can describe, once we know that our area of operation is completely contained within that large area, we don't need to say it over and over and over. It would just be redundant. It's important that everybody knows about that, but we can simply say grid 8913-6438. And now we're describing a location to a precision of 10 meters within our local area of operation. What about alternatives? Well, we saw UTM coordinates. There's a full 16 characters required to be able to do that. And there's no concept of the truncation and precision. Local coordinate systems, there are state plane coordinate systems and county coordinates. Latitude, longitude. Latitude, longitude can actually be described in several different formats. You know, some people will simply say, well, why can't we just use GPS? Well, GPS gives us a location, but there are many ways of representing that location, different coordinate systems, different levels of accuracy and precision that come along with that. And when we're talking about latitude, longitude, we need to make sure that the person that's receiving our location description knows what format we're using. And if you're going to be describing this over radio transmission, it's very important that you use very specific terminology to make sure that that's read properly. So, for example, the degrees, minutes, seconds, I would have to say 44 degrees, 49 minutes, 58.1 seconds north, 93 degrees, 08 minutes, 15.0 seconds west. And you have to, if you miss some of that, or if it gets misinterpreted that you're somehow saying degrees, minutes, decimal minutes, it could be 50 miles away. So it's very important. And the U.S. National Grid was really designed to eliminate confusion, reduce the chance of creating any kind of ambiguity, and make sure that we're also being very explicit in our locations, because we know there should always be the same number of digits in X and Y. And so once again, then what about lat long? The Earth is round, so degrees are not squares. There's some form of a trapezoid, and ultimately, because of the curvature of the Earth, the size of a degree varies depending on where you are. So at the equator, 1 degree is approximately 69 miles, both latitude and longitude. But longitudes get smaller as you get towards the poles. 1 degree of longitude is 50 miles in Minnesota, for example, at about approximately 45 degrees latitude. And then distance calculations are difficult. So 10 meters is approximately 0.5 seconds of longitude at 45 degrees latitude, but it's 0.3 seconds of latitude, degrees of latitude at 45 degrees. So it becomes very difficult to visualize. Of course, there are calculators that can do all of that, but it's not very intuitive. There are maps available for the entire U.S. that support the U.S. National Grid. This is the USGS US Topo series. They actually have PDF files that you can download. Here you can see an air photo, but there are also contours. They're 7.5 minutes by 7.5 minutes, 1 to 24,000 scale, approximately 20 meters of accuracy. And you can use something like these grid readers that are available to be able to measure within each of those grid squares on the map. And maps can come at different sizes and scales, but they should always have a grid, and the grid that should be on them is a UTM grid, which supports U.S. National Grid. There are mobile apps that also support the U.S. National Grid. Remember that U.S. National Grid and Military Grid Reference System are synonymous for all practical purposes. So you need to go into your settings on your GPS app and find the setting to read the coordinates in MGRS. Some will say USNG as well, but there will be settings there. And once you do that, you're able to navigate using U.S. National Grid. There are also other websites and training sites out there. It may not say U.S. National Grid, but remember, it's synonymous with the military grid. And so there's a lot of training out there for military purposes and backcountry trekking as well. That all applies to learning how to use the U.S. National Grid. How's that?
Clocked you at 13:10.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. How about content? We really wanted to have a conversation, after this, so that I don't know if anybody wants me to go back through any of the slides, but we can talk about doing the same kind of thing for different audiences as well. So, I'd like to get reaction from the group here on did I capture the essence of the U.S. National Grid, and then what kind of audience would this be appropriate for?
Oh, well, I'll start if nobody else will. I'm like your biggest fan, Randy.
You better be critical.
No, I really like the idea that you explained the concept of why you would want to use a grid and then sprung it on them that this is the U.S. National Grid that we're talking about, rather than coming out of the door with, I'm here to talk to you about the U.S. National Grid, and then going in backwards on it. I think that was a very clever approach. I thought your flow was excellent. I mean, in my opinion, you hit everything that needed to be talked about very succinctly. That's because you've done versions of U.S. National Grid presentations 8 million times. And I really think that you should try to, and I'm so frustrated that, I didn't see any of your slides.
Oh,
All I can see is your head. So I'm hoping that everybody else so they could see your stuff. So I'm hoping that whatever this malfunction is I'm dealing with actually recorded that, because what I think it's important that we convert what you just did into a pitch sheet that kind of does, has that exact same flow. And it's really too bad. And just for a little background for everybody else, part of the last discussion we had at the board of directors meeting was we took a pass at presenting at the GIS event down in Milwaukee in October, because the most that they would allow would be a 15-minute presentation. And I just felt that's not adequate to try to deliver the thought about what U.S. National Grid is, why it's important, and how to get involved. And the last thing I would say is it sure felt to me like everything you talked about there would work for pretty much any community that would be listening to it, whether you're a responder or whether you're a GIS type or whether or not you're just trying to get your feet on the ground about what is this thing and why are these old people yapping about it. All right, now I'll shut up and let somebody else either pat you on the back or throw stones. But go ahead.
This is Jules. I'd like to do both. Frankly, I thought it was an excellent presentation. The flow was great, and the graphics were good. The one and the timing was terrific too. Though in a real situation, the timing would probably tend to stretch out a little bit. But the one thing I'd say in critiquing is probably don't need to spend so much time. You save a minute or so maybe drawing the comparison back to UTM, because that picture right there, for example,
yeah.
UTM for most general audiences doesn't mean diddly.
Right. I had
so,
I had it in and I took it out and then I put it back in.
So yeah, that would save a little bit of time, but and marginally confusing to people who have no clue about the fact that the MGRS and the U.S. National Grid are just sort of truncations of that
Right.
bigger thing. But the other thing I would say is the start was excellent and showing where grids are applicable to wide areas of devastation. But when you close, you might just repeat that kind of a thing that says to tell these people, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you about grids on top of a devastated land, and then you go through all of the detailed discussion, which is great, and then close with a recap of, now
Yep.
remember this is to help you in emergency response in places where no other references are available and da da da. Just a quick
Yep.
reminder of what it all means in the real world.
Yep.
Over.
Yep. Yeah, you bookend it. You're correct. Couple of thoughts or how I got at some of this stuff. I mean, here, for first responders, search and rescue, they're always they're they, they're taught a grid search, or they understand the concept of a grid search. They understand the concept of using grid, but they would create an arbitrary grid just based on whatever, right? The bingo grid thing, right? And so you're trying to draw that parallel, give them something that they might have already heard about. It's familiar, but then what you do is you take it to a standard, something that is interoperable across jurisdictions. And you shouldn't just be making up your own grid. Here's the one that you should be using. Okay. And the UTM, putting it in, taking it out, putting it back in. I think that would be a refinement depending on the audience. I mean, I would want to have it in there if I'm talking to somebody that knows something about mapping GIS, right? Because now what you're doing is helping them understand. They may not have ever heard about the MGRS, right? But once they know that it's just a convenient notation for UTM coordinates, now you've brought that legitimacy to the whole thing, right? But yeah, for the first responders, they don't care. It just muddies it all up, of course. So that's definitely point well taken.
Um,
I'll go next, Steve, unless you got another
no,
comment.
go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
So what I was just going to bring up is when I post in the LinkedIn groups, the most frequent pushback I get is, I'll read a couple comments for you. So this is a emergency technical service GIS mentor individual. That's what his title is. This is great for mapping professionals, not so much for the general public. What three words is an easier tool for location identification? What three words is being used in 911 systems? And many car manufacturers, blah, blah, blah. This other guy, he's a project manager, GIS person. How is this different from lat long? I think you effectively talked about that. Then he says, in my honest opinion, what three words is much easier to understand / remember / relay, 3x3 meter resolution, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of comments about what three words, and I need to be able to effectively combat that. And so I think that would
Yep.
be helpful.
We should have a canned response for that. What three words is not a replacement for U.S. National Grid,
Yep.
and neither is U.S. National Grid a replacement for what three words. But what three words has a very specific purpose. It's for describing a specific location, but there is no concept of where that location is relative to another what three words location, right? There's no concept of being able to scale it up from a 3 meter square to 100 meters or something like that. And the U.S. National Grid gives you much more functionality than what three words does. Now, there should be some kind of interoperability between them, so that if you get what three words, it shows up on a map and on a screen, and that screen also has grid lines on it, that then relate to U.S. National Grid, and the other way around. When you're working on something that shows you a grid, you should be conscious of what three words at least. But there's no way that you can put what three words on a map. you know. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't
Does
work.
not.
So I think we can come up with something. We wouldn't want to get into you know, uh, some kind of a, a, a fist fight with what three words about, we're better than you are. No, we're better than you are. We should have a response that defines the additional functionality that you get from MGRS that you don't get from what three words.
Yeah, what three words is not mathematically uniform, which you've just
Right.
said. It's also, by the way, as far as I know, not available in any GPS receivers. So, if you, I mean, if you have the what three word software, there's somewhere within it, they probably have some sort of lat long or some other convention to place it on the earth. But if you don't have that, you're right. You say there's no way to reference one point to another point, and your GPS receiver won't give you any of them.
Yeah. But we should craft, I mean, I could take a stab at that. Just craft some kind of a response doesn't, that is not, that avoids being confrontational with what three words. Um, and really it's apples and oranges. They're two different things, but there's limited usefulness to what three words. I can say where I am.
Yeah.
And there's no understanding of where I am relative to where somebody else is.
Well,
I
then I
call
know
it
what
a proprietary boutique convention that's interesting but not useful for emergency response or
Yeah,
other.
it's cute.
Yeah, that's right.
So you've got two people with their hands up. You got the conversation of the year going, Randy. David Dodds, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I was just going to say, as far as what three words, just ask them, how far is it from pilot legs road to owner,
Yeah, right.
house car?
Well, the thing
You don't
is,
have to, it becomes self-relevant then, or self,
right.
realize it.
Well, but again, back to the proprietary thing. I'm sure you can. What three words would have a way in their app to be able to allow you to do that. Put in this what three words, put in that what three words, and it tells you how far apart they are.
Right. But as we
But
are here in the elevator talking about it, I can
yeah,
whip out a
right.
pencil and I can tell you how far it is on the grid.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And just quick, going back to the presentation, I'd say, check your audience. As a veteran, knowing that this worked the same as what I'd already learned is a huge selling point. I don't have to learn yet another thing. So I
Right.
wouldn't be afraid I wouldn't want to not say that. But, you got to just see who you're talking to. Or, maybe it only needs a quick blurb, but it was a
Yeah.
number one selling point for me.
MGRS.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually I will just ask anybody here with military experience. And there's usually somebody in the audience, raise their hand. And then when I say, well, this is taught to every recruit in the military, and I might get a nod or something, and everybody kind of looks at that person. So, but yeah, I mean, it's all about helping people, creating some kind of legitimacy to U.S. National Grid, and that it's not something new. It has a very strong foundation, and that's part of the why I want to put UTM back in is that UTM was created back in the 40s. MGRS was created by the military to have a convenient notation for UTM coordinates. And so, when you can relate it back to a solid foundation and say that it still has relevance, 80 years later, I think that helps make the argument. I don't really have to make the argument. This isn't something new that I have to somehow justify. It's justified by the fact that it has that firm foundation. That's really what I'm trying to drive at. And I think that there might be other ways to do that. But I think that's an important thing to do when you're trying to sell it. That, this isn't something new. It's been around. It's got a solid foundation.
Cole, why don't you go ahead?
I think one of the things that we need to do is, and I've been pushing it, is if you look at what 3 words, they do have it at the bottom to where you can select, do you want these to convert to longitude, latitude? And then they have the British grid system in there, but they don't have US National Grid. And I've asked them many times, why isn't if you could put the British grid system in there, why can't you put US National Grid in there?
Well, and that might be another thing for the IWG is send what 3 words a note.
I think we should send a note to them saying, hey, here's it is, and they should be able to do it, because I know that, it's been in, they got embedded into the fire service or into, I'll think of it, SOS, 911 SOS, and it's embedded everywhere.
Yeah.
But again,
it's the whole proprietary
Rapid SOS. So they're working very closely with Rapid SOS. But if you're going to do that, put both coordinate systems in there, because I've had many guys turn around and say, just give me what 3 words, I'll put it in my system, I'll get the longitude, latitude, and then be able to do it. So they should also have US National Grid, and then I don't care. If you want to use that, use it, but let it convert to something that we can read out to somebody else.
Yeah, I think, the most important thing is that what 3 words does is give you a convenient or a memorable, perhaps, way of describing a discrete location. But when you start looking at doing grid searches and cleanup operations and how are you going to do that with what 3 words? It's just, like I said, it's apples and oranges. And so I think
100% correct. 100% correct. It's
so
just,
I think there's a follow up to, like I say, we don't try to beat up what 3 words. Yeah, we all grin and shake our heads when somebody says what 3 words. It's a reality. We're not gonna beat them at their game.
No, but work with us. Give us a coordinate format. You've got lat long in there. You've got the British. Why can't you put that in? If they put that in there, I'm done having the conversation. And there are a lot of people pick on me because they go up and try to tease me with, hey, we've been teaching what 3 words. It's the best system out there. I'm like, and I finally I don't react to it as much as I used to. I used to get red in the face when they used to say it. And now I just turn around and says, oh, let me see your phone. Oh, okay. Oh, good. There's a longitude, latitude. So you're telling me you're at these coordinates. And they're like, oh, so it ends the story.
Yeah.
As long as you tell me what the longitude, latitude, or US National Grid is, I'm happy. So get a letter out to them and say, hey, get this implemented.
You know what? I think we can start with just some bullet points.
Yes.
Addressing what 3 words relative to the US National Grid.
Yeah.
I think we're in a range of doing a couple of template letters that we can send off to car manufacturers, other entities that are doing whatever they're doing. So anyway, Ace, please, would you go next? Sorry, Cole, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we want to get an emergency manager in here.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the presentation. Just a few thoughts. Trying to pitch it to like volunteer firefighters and stuff, time limited. And so I personally would pitch the local first instead of starting to throw the whole big and national scheme out. To try and sell them on how it works just for you, and then showing the disaster, like the tornado, like that image right there shows more. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware. Most of the state received like $7 million to map schools, and a company called Critical Response Group mapped a lot of the schools, I believe. And I did see the USNG on there. And so for me, it's an opportunity when we're bringing these maps into the school or to the fire departments and stuff to bring up the subject of USNG, and then kind of expand on, okay, now we're doing mutual aid, we're going to be helping our neighbors, and how does this tie in if you're getting that information. I can pull up an example, show you one of those maps if you want me to share my screen if you have time, but I know time's limited.
No, absolutely. Ace, if you got one available, that'd be great. The question is whether or not you're actually going to be able to share. I don't know. See if you can grab it. Yes. Yeah. Yep. It says you started screen share.
Oh, sorry. Are you seeing a map of Atwater School here?
No. I'm
I
seeing
see it.
I see it.
It's just along the edge on the right-hand side. It shows the 15T, and then it breaks down the school into different grids and that type of thing. So for me, it's just a way to bring up the subject with fire folks.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Ace. Appreciate that. We've got somebody with Samsung SM something. Who might that be? You got your hand up? Guess I scared him off.
Hey, this is Jules. I apologize for just butting in, but I don't see a place where I can raise my hand. But while we're talking about sending letters to folks, we ought to send one to Rapid SOS too.
Yes. Yep.
They're not in the business of selling a grid, but they use them, and I've attended their webinars, and I've commented, and I've done this. I said, and time again, I've said, why don't you just include U.S. National Grid in your service, and I get the Heisman. So don't. But yeah, they do. I don't know how nationwide they are, but I know here around the Washington area they've been involved in a lot.
That is
Yep.
exactly perfect, because then they can choose that if what three words goes bankrupt, then they can sit there and go, oh, we're already working with U.S. National Grid, and that doesn't require a corporation.
Right.
So I agree with that.
Oh, Bruce, you've been too patient. Thanks for hanging in there.
Oh, no problem. As you know, I'm part of the choir that you're preaching to, so I just wanted to say, Randy, that was great, and I totally agree. And I vote for keeping UTM in there. I think you can do it quickly, but I think there's a following among outdoorsy people and camping and recreational that are familiar with UTM, have not heard of MGRS, and kind of combining all of those and saying, this is something that came up. And I've seen UTM stuff. UTM documentation apparently with the truncation convention, both on the left and the right, that is modulo 100 kilometers, and then chopping it on both directions. So I don't know the whole history, but I'm kind of suspecting that UTM came along and then the military said, we'd love to use this, but look at all those digits of numeric UTM, which just gives me a headache, and the letters are so much better. So yeah, I think it's good to have all three of those in there if it's done quickly. I also like your thing about not being adversarial towards what three words, given their prominence, and I think somebody else had come up with a framing that it gives a contrast, but it talks about the advantages. We can express the advantages of the capabilities that USNG gives you, and not specifically say, well, what three words doesn't let you do that. So, I mean, without putting them down. And I think what three words is kind of cool. And again, if you're trying to give one specific location, cool. But I think it could be framed that way. And to be cooperative about it. And the only other thing I wanted to add, comparison with Lattalon, that was great, I thought. And one other thing occurred to me: the I don't think you mentioned there are no negative numbers. That no north south, no east west, and so you
Right.
can't mess things up that way. So because I know the Latlon has a lot of fans, but it's like, oh, okay. And you might want to mention the missing helicopter we had here, and we've got other examples of the coordinate screw ups. And yes, this in real life can cause problems and does. So, but anyway, but you know all that. But I thought it was great, Randy. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
All right,
Thank,
thanks.
thank you, Bruce. That was great. Rich, you want to jump in too? It looks like. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me? I got kicked off of my computer. I'm on my phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I'm back. No, Randy, I thought it was really good. From the basic, wildland firefighters perspective, they're not going to know a thing about UTM, absolutely nothing.
Oh,
However, I would still leave it in. I mean, it's something you go would just, touch on very, very quickly. And the only other thing you might talk about is what the advantages are over a bingo grid. Because in a wildland fire and prescribed fire, they are using a bingo grid
Yeah.
system sometimes that are mapping, but otherwise, I think it's really good. So.
All right, thank you.
Well, it looks like I better swear at you more often, Randy. All right. Anybody else? I think we've pretty well gone around the horn here. Did you get the feedback you needed, Randy?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is get a video recording of this, and perhaps do it twice with just two different flavors. One, more to the first responder, and the other more to maybe the emergency manager, or GIS technical person.
Yeah.
I don't know, but anyway, um, polish it so I'm not stammering around, and get it on the center.
I think it was about as good as any human being on the planet could have done it, given the fact you put it together this morning. All right. Okay. I think everybody, we've hit the end here. Can you see my screen? Would be the next question.
I gotta stop sharing first.
Okay.
Okay, now I see your screen.
I'm good. Is that correct?
I see it.
Okay. We've burned through open forum. I would think that we are to the point where we wanted to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn? How about a so moved?
So moved, Knippel.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Round second.
Thank you very much. Anybody opposed? Hearing no one, we are adjourned. Reminders, the next board of directors meeting June 9th, 11 in the morning. Next IWG is Wednesday, July 22nd, 1 p.m. Mark it down, July 22nd. Here's the last thought for you. Life is just a series of trying to make up your mind. Okay, thanks everybody. Till we meet again. One last apology for the screw up. Mike Sovereign, can you hang on the line here? Let's see if we can figure out what the technical mess up is here.
Sure.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.